professionals. That's what we are.
That's kind of what we like to portray, which is not true, but it's nice to pretend that we're professionals.
We'll just
Oh,
keep
live.
pretending.
Oh, no, that's how you can find out.
Professional podcasters, that's us.
Indeed, yes.
Hi, this is WGSN-DB Going Solo Network Radio, TV, and podcast #1 Internet Singles Talk Network. And this is Let's Talk Dating with Christine and Barry. Hi, Barry.
Hi, Christine.
The professional podcast.
Yes,
Dating
indeed.
and relationship conversation people.
Absolutely. So today
we're going to talk about, there's so many dating terms that have been floating out in the world. And so we're going to go over some of the ones that I'd heard of, a lot of them, but there was a few I hadn't heard of either. I think this is going to be really fun.
It'll be educational for sure.
It'll
Maybe a
be
little bit disturbing. Maybe disturbing as well. We'll see how it goes.
No, I mean, some of them. And then, of course, part of our responsibility is to help you recognize it and what the heck to do about it when it shows up in front of you in the dating world.
Indeed.
So I'm going to go first because ladies get to go first, right?
Of course you do. Yes.
I like that rule a lot.
I'm not surprised.
Thank you. Because I'm such a girl. I like all that girly stuff. I tell people, there's times when I'm kind of frustrated because I'm not as strong. There's times when, especially because I live alone, I can't open something. Generally, high 90% of the time, I like being a girl a lot. A lot.
Yeah, I understand.
There's so many benefits.
So going back to the list. Yes.
Yes, the list. So we just printed them off the internet. So we're just going to take them in the order of the way it came out. So the first one, and you get to have a little reading, but I like reading. The first is soft launch. This was interesting. Originated as a web term that means launching a new website in stages. And it became a dating slang because it means essentially the same thing, except the thing being launched is a new relationship. I thought, well, that's interesting. The term refers to the trend of posting subtle hints. You guys love those subtle hints on social media that you're dating somebody new. 2 glasses of wine, for instance, without revealing identifying details. It was coined by actress Rachel Sennett, who tweeted in 2020, "Congratulations on the soft launch of your boyfriend. Picture in the story, elbow at the side, profile only. If things work out, maybe you'll level up to sharing photos of each other on the main feed." So I thought that was pretty interesting because I personally advise, don't tell everybody and your second cousin if you've had 1 date or 2 dates, because you don't know where it's going to go. I mean, certainly you could tell your best friend. I always have to have my debriefing after my first meeting. And I like that. That's a really nice downloading thing for me. But I see people who are, asking opinions, and it's only been the first meeting. And I think I would advise maybe not to do that because you're going to get a bunch of opinions, even when you haven't made up your mind yet.
Absolutely. The other part for me, and this is where it gets to be, show how old I am, maybe, because shock horror, I predate social media. The thing about social media is that it has added another dimension to sharing and being visible about your relationship status.
Yeah.
Because up until there was social media, and really it's only your friends would know if you were single or dating anyway, and only some of those people would know who you were dating. But now social media, the whole world knows because you tell them. So first of all, the opportunity with social media is to share what you want to share. But as has been said many times, like for example with Instagram, is primarily the example of this, is people tend to put their best life perception on those platforms. Yeah. Facebook's more real life. It feels like, just from my own informal research, because I don't have data points to say the one is better than the other. But the thing is, when you do post about your relationship, and I've seen people guilty of this, where they post pictures of their new love, and 3 months later, it's a picture of their new love who's different from the one that was there 3 months ago. Yeah. So I would highly recommend, encourage, suggest that if you are dating and you're single in the dating pool, until you maybe moved in together or you're in a really committed relationship, maybe you don't want to market it somewhere visible like social media, because it is a bit disconcerting. Because the other thing with especially nowadays with social media, I've noticed that the feed in Facebook in particular doesn't show exactly what's happening in the moment with your friends. Hasn't done it for a long time because there's ads and everything else. But you might see a post from somebody that was from a week ago or previous day or something like that. So if you post something, know that it may not be time. If you're trying to make it time relevant, it may not be the best place to do it.
Yeah.
The other side of that is you might start seeing posts show up, and I've seen people share this on Facebook where like the memory shop a year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, and looking back and go, oh, I forgot what happened then. Maybe some of your exes need to not be showing up 3 years after you've broken up with them. So I'm suggesting maybe you keep that off of social media until, I mean, in some ways, the idea of the soft launching is to show the indication that you're in a relationship or dating without showing who it is, which you might be smart enough to do, just to be clear.
Yes.
So your thoughts?
I think it's really smart to ease in.
Yeah.
Give yourself a little bit of timeline, this many dates or this many months. And we've at least, I think, because, I'm into multi-dating, which this certainly addresses in one of these words, but to wait until you think for good reason, you have evidence that it's going to stick, that you really are going to move forward with each other. You don't know if it's going to last. You've had, 5 or 6 dates, or you've been dating for 2 or 3 months, that you've really decided I want to concentrate on this person before you start making anything public on any social media. I mean, I think you could just end up with too many opinions of people that don't know you, don't have your best interest at heart, don't know what your history is or their history, and you're going to get their stuff on top of it. So I think, yeah. But then once you've moved to that, then I think a soft launch, I think I'm interested. I think this is going well, but still not everything about everything. I think just a little bit of information. I'm thinking about monogamy. We're starting to make a commitment to each other. I'm really excited to share more later. I think that's lovely, but pace yourself. It's not that you have your very first date and you tell all your Facebook friends. I think that that's hard on everybody. It's hard on you. It's hard on the other person. It's hard on your friends because they get excited and now they're disappointed. They get attached and now you broke up with them. I mean, think about your friends if it's not you, right?
On that point, there's definitely the sense of maybe it's showing how desperate you've been that you show on Facebook straight away you met somebody. Not a good look. So, yeah.
Desperate. Oh, no. Desperate and lonely. Oh, those are not good traits to flash in front of everybody.
Right. But at the same, and also though it can be that soft launching idea, at least the idea of putting out on social media indications, not necessarily that you're with a certain person, but for example, if you're out dating and one of your suitors or partners gives you flowers, you put a picture of the flowers in a vase on social media. Nothing wrong with that. I mean, yes, you are leading a mystery by not telling who it is because you don't know yet who it's going to be ultimately down the road. So the idea of maybe choosing for yourself, what is the point in the relationship where you make it public? Like if you were basically, here's a good way of doing it. If you're going out with somebody, when would you tell your parents or your spouse, your sibling or somebody else that you're in a relationship? Maybe at that point, we put it on social media. So use the barometer that way because social media is unfortunately like a click away. You can be there so quickly. So it's tempting to put stuff up there that may not last.
Yeah.
Ideally, relationships do.
Yeah. And one of the things I would mention is but one of the other things that they do soft launches a lot are restaurants. And I've been privileged to do that where they'll bring in their family and friends. And then, the servers might not get their act together and the kitchen isn't quite together and things take longer and it isn't exactly what the picture looked like, which we're all accepting. I mean, they buy us this wonderful free meal. It's usually free because they want to practice on us.
Right.
But they're not going to show everybody. They want these people who already care about them or have committed to giving them really good feedback and cheering them on. So I think that could be used in the dating realm too, that I have to tell somebody. So I have my bestie. I tell her I'm okay with that, but I am not going to tell 10 people. I just won't. That doesn't work for me. So if you think about the restaurant, before you invite the reviewer to come, you've had your soft launch.
You've done, yes, you tested it out first. I like that idea. It's a good one. Yeah, good.
Thank you.
Sure. Should we go on to the next one?
Yes. You want to do the next one?
Sure. This is such a lovely one.
Oh, did you? I said, oh, good. Barry's going to say the word.
Roaching. I mean, I'm not going to read the whole thing, but basically the premise of it, the idea, because roaching is like cockroaching, and the idea being that when you go up and turn the light on in a dark room, you walk in, you don't just see we see one roach. There's going to be tons of other roaches. So the idea of roaching in this conversation is that you're not necessarily dating one person at a time. You're dating multiple people at a time.
Mm-hmm.
And there's something about the clandestine nature of that. Like hiding the cockroaches in the dark. It's like you're not telling the people you're dating anybody else. You're keeping it a secret. There's something clandestine about that. And it's not being forthright and forthcoming. So the premise of it is that it's playing this sort of secret role where you're not letting somebody know. And straight away, I mean, my thing is, if you're dating 7 different people because you're finding who's who, let them know, because first of all, it might up the ante for them, which would be a good thing. And secondly, there's nothing to hide. Because the other part is, if you're dating 7 or 8 people at once, do you remember who you said what to? And so if you start saying the same thing again to person number 2 that you actually thought you said to person number 3, the person number 2 is going to go, didn't you already tell me this? Did you tell somebody else this? Am I forgetting something? It's like, it's confusing. So being honest up front, saying, I'm seeing several people at once, not in the same moment, obviously, but just to let you know that I may remember things I've said to you, or might forget because I said it to somebody else. So please bear with me. I mean, that's honesty, and it works.
Mm-hmm. And I also say to them, I hope you are too. I hope that you're dating more than one person. I know men are so surprised when I say that. And it is interesting, the people that I've met who have to really sit with that for a minute. They're old fashioned, especially widowed people. They met them in their teens. That was the only person they've been with for a very long time. And they're like, really? Let me think about that. And so I explain that when you're just first getting to know each other, it's kind of nice to have some comparison and contrasting, but not to find out what's bad about the other person. You just get more comfortable with what really matches you. You start really liking, I look forward to being with this person and not quite that person as much. And wow, I really like how our conversation flows. And the other one's just not quite so easy, which doesn't make either person good or bad. They're just more of a match for me or not. And I said, I hope that you're doing the same thing. And boy, you have to be really brave to say that out loud, because it's like, well, it's okay for me to do that, but I'm not sure I like you doing that.
That is the thing. It's interesting how when we go on dates, we're not always what's the one looking for? Fair and balanced. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Again, I'll go back to the honesty piece, because for me, one of the things about relationships that's vital is to be transparent, to be vulnerable with somebody, and so to tell the truth. Not saying you don't. It's not like if they don't ask, you won't tell them. Not that sort of not telling the truth. I mean, literally, when you're hiding the facts from people, something that might be important to them, to share with them so they know, because that, frankly, is a service or a kindness to at least let them know. And yes, as you said, which is something I didn't think of saying, so now I'm taking that one on as well, to let them know, I hope you're doing the same thing as well, is a very, if nothing else, it might make the conversation more interesting.
Well, how's your dating experiences been? That's what I ask them. I mean, I don't want to hear details. And I also, at this moment in my life, hasn't always been this, but at this moment in my life, if we're going to start talking about having a sexual relationship, that's going to be monogamy for me. That is, there's no ifs, ands, or buts. It's going to just be me and you. And until we can make that commitment, I'm not going to ask you. What I want to hear is a broad answer. Are you meeting people that seem to be your match? Where do you meet people? I'm always happy to hear that. Suggested to me and my customers, my clients. But it's very interesting, because the people who are the most shocked seem to be the ones that get right on board. They are like, oh, well, that's interesting. And really, men tend to be a little more competitive, and I don't do it on purpose, but it certainly has worked that way. They like step up and, well, what would put me in the front running? What are the important things for you? And if I cannot be open and honest, and they can't be open and honest, I've said it before, you don't say everything, but everything you say needs to be the 100% truth. If you can't have that on the first couple meetings, I don't know when you think you're going to get it. It's not going to develop later. It's only going to get harder, because then you're like, well, I can't say that because I already said that before. I can't share who I really am. I want them to see this is who I am. I am somebody that wants to really get to know somebody before I make a commitment. So let's spend some time together. And I'm maybe going to be spending some time with other people and getting to know them. And what I've had to happen is I went out with 2 guys at once and ended up this one guy, and I introduced the other one to a girlfriend. It worked out really well.
Nice.
Well, I kept thinking, they'd really like each other. And they did.
Hey, that
I
works
know.
out. That's beautifully worked out.
Isn't that funny?
Something you said, and I want to just make sure I speak for myself the same way. Is for me, that's the other part too, is that for me, going on different dates is getting to meet people. If I'm having sex with one person, that's all I'm doing with one person. I'm not doing with any other person. So for me, definitely dating, and I see that's a whole other conversation we've had before. I know we talked about this before in our podcast about the difference between dating and relationship, and sometimes it's a muddy ground, because some people dating is just going out with people socially, and some people dating is actually being in bed with somebody. It's like the spectrum is there. So for me, if I'm having sexual relationships with one person, I'm not seeing anybody else.
Yeah.
But if I'm just meeting different people and going different dates and going out for coffee, dinner, whatever that is, I might see multiple. But there's a line that I choose too, same as you do, which is once cross that line, that becomes the new standard. So I don't mess with that one.
And I like that you said that. And what I've done with people with terms is getting to know somebody is dating. You're meeting each other, you're getting to know each other, you're doing different things together, you're seeing how comfortable are you, do you continue want to see them more again? And then what you do is you include dating into a relationship. So you're still dating each other within this committed relationship with each other. And hopefully, if you decide that you really are going to start talking about a future, that you then keep the dating part in that future talking relationship, that the dating part never stops. It just gets monogamous and rich and more close and more intimate in not only your sexual relationship, but the way that you're sharing with each other and being open with each other. So I think people don't always see the steps and the more committed and the more involved, and that if you're just dating, it's okay to have other people. If you're now in this monogamous relationship, no, unless that's your preference. And you've talked about that. And part of your dating was that we're going to include other people. Okay.
Right.
And generally, most people want to have just one-on-one relationships. So to use the terminology, and since we're talking about terms, I think it's important to use the terminology correct and in your head too, not just what comes out of your mouth.
Absolutely. And I know it's definitely one of those things where people talk about dating as being the sexual relationship, and that's always where I got confused, because for me, dating is the getting to know somebody before you do that. And for me, once you're in that sexual relationship, that is a relationship. It's not just dating anymore. And yes, the idea about continuing to have dates once you're in relationship all the way through is it saves relationships, frankly. So you got to keep doing that.
Oh yeah. I highly recommend keeping dating the whole time.
Yes.
Yeah, my brother and sister-in-law just celebrated their 47th wedding anniversary, and they'll still go on dates. I just think it's charming.
Smart move, frankly.
I know. It's mandatory.
Yes.
So you all know who Dr. Fauci is, and now he has his own dating term. Is that hysterical?
It is a trip.
So it's and I just was on a client call with a client, and we were just like, everybody's talking about their vaccine or not. So this is turning down a date because someone didn't take the pandemic seriously, and or the whole vaccine thing. So this one guy, we were looking at his profile, the very first words on his profile, I am vaxxed and triple, and I will not go out with anybody that hasn't had as many boosters as I. And I'm like, well, that tells you right away. And she is not at all. She's not had one. It works for her. It's her thing. So we went, well, we don't have to read any farther because, oh my God, you guys could not be any more of a mismatch.
Right.
So that's been what's so interesting about the whole pandemic, is that people are making these huge decisions about whether or not you've been vaccinated and you took COVID seriously, somebody actually saw Dr. Fauci on an airplane. I mean, a real person talked about it on an airplane in first class, and he was the only person in first class that had on his mask. I guess he takes himself seriously.
Yeah.
But it used to be people would click their political belief on their profile, and now they talk about if you voted for or didn't vote for, and I can't talk to you and you can't talk to me. And now the whole vaccine pandemic thing is huge. It's really a dividing line without much middle ground. The politics, there used to be a little middle ground, and then there doesn't seem to be a middle ground anymore. And I don't know that there's a middle ground about vaccines. Have you heard any middle ground?
There is a spectrum, and I'll talk about in a second. The thing that I want to speak to first, though, is actually to underscore what you said about the dating apps. I'm on a few dating apps, and I think every single one of them, if I remember correctly, has a flag we can click to, vaccinated or not vaccinated. So that's built in now. Same as religion, same as political party, all your stuff. It's in there now, so it's part of the system. So it's no longer just a casual thing to say yes or no. It's like it's in the choice points you make, so you can select for that. So that's one thing. Second thing, though, is I say there's a spectrum because I have friends who I'm not particularly friends with because they've become so anti-vax. Because again, the divisiveness of the conversation has become so extreme for them. I also have friends of mine who are not vaccinated because for their own health they've not been vaccinated, and I'm totally fine with that. I mean, I'm fine with people being anti-vax. Just don't hang around me because that conversation doesn't work for me. That's just the way it is. And I have been vaccinated, and I haven't had all of them because I don't feel like I want to do all of them. So it's like that's what I'm saying. There's a spectrum, and I'm not like 100% vaccinated all the time, every single minute, because that's not what I feel aligned to do. I did get vaccinated during the time it was most concerning, but also just to be transparent, I've never had a flu vaccine. I've had flu and it didn't kill me, so I figure I'm okay. But that's just me. So saying it that way, and I know some people might be saying, yeah, but other people, it's like, I understand that. But the thing is, I take care of myself and I don't hang around other people when they have flu. And frankly, this conversation about COVID has been a really eye-opener for a lot of people. And yes, there has been such, and unfortunately, because it did get politicized and it became the trumpet call or the clarion call that some people used, that if you do or you don't, you believe this or that makes you this good person or bad person. And that whole extremism, which is a thing that is, I mean, it's not on a list here, but that whole political allegiance sort of stuff has become such a dysfunction too, that makes it so hard to meet somebody who doesn't have matching views at some point. I mean, it used to be the challenge was if you go out with somebody who's vegan and somebody who's a meat eater, there can be some challenges there. You can work it out, but it's challenges. I dated a vegetarian, I'm not. And it was a bit of a hiccup in our relationship to work through. So the idea of having this vaccine, non-vaccine decision-making point or divisiveness is a challenge for sure. So how you choose to do this and how you take it on, at this point, we're sort of, a lot of people, I think, seem to be post-pandemic and want to put it behind them, forget about it. So they might not even think about the vaccines at this point in time because, mask wearing has become kind of a random thing more than a required thing. So this term may have lost its impact as it did a year and a half, 2 years ago. But certainly the question I was asked to leave on the table for everybody is, when somebody's viewpoints don't match yours, how far can you go to meet them in the middle?
Yep. That is essential. I mean, because when I first started coaching, it was religion and politics.
Yeah.
And I'd say, even if you're a staunch whatever, are you open to somebody else's opinion?
Mm-hmm.
And are you willing to see if they're open to a different opinion?
Right.
Because I think it can make really great conversations, and you'll go to listen to a speaker that you would have maybe not thought before, that makes you solidify your thought, or maybe you would like, oh, I hadn't really thought about that little extra thing. Maybe I will move a little more middle, not quite so radically one side or the other. And I have found that really fun, getting involved with people who had some different beliefs than mine, as long as we could have some civility when we had our conversation. And
Yes.
I loved the term to agree to disagree, that we could
Mhm.
have this heated discussion, we could bring both of our points of view, and then we could still part fine, part friends, go on to another subject and not say, oh, I now think you're a bad person because of how you believe.
Right.
And I believe, for a lot of reasons, social media doesn't help, that it's pushed people even more into their opposite corners where they
Mhm.
don't see the negotiating points that are available. That's sad, because you could pass up somebody that in so many other ways could be a really good match for you if you didn't have this, but I can only believe this and they can only believe the same thing. It's hard, and certainly as a coach, and trying to match people up. I'm like, okay, we're moving on. Okay, but look at all the other. Oh, okay, they have all these other things you say you want. Okay, we're moving.
Yeah.
I mean, I say okay. I mean, I have to say okay, because if they can't get past that, they wouldn't be able to have a conversation with this other
Right.
person. And I've had some fascinating conversation with people who believe different than me. It's been fun.
Mm-hmm. It is. Honestly, and it's an indication, I would suggest, that indication of your level of growth and awareness when you can have a conversation with somebody who's got different views. It's like the
Yeah.
challenge is when you have somebody who's so rigid in their difference of opinion from yours, there's no wiggle room there. And frankly, a relationship with that sort of person is going to be very hard to have anyway, because there's no rapport, there's no connection. If you want to spend your time trying to focus on bringing them over to your viewpoints, good luck with that. I'm not necessarily sure that's going to be a dating choice.
No.
Maybe it's some sort of debating experience you want to have, but no, it is not worth the effort. So I might want to give that one up.
And I have some really good friends that have now been married for, I think it's 15 years. And they couldn't have different political views. They campaigned for their candidates. They have
Wow.
grown up with these political views. And
Mm-hmm.
it's a pleasure to sit with them, because I'm like, well, tell me what you're thinking and tell me what you're thinking. I mean, I get really well-informed answers from
Yeah.
them. And yet it's never, once they got past their first 2 dates, because I got to hear about them, they were fine. They're so stimulated by each other. There's no downside, which I was like, well, let's wait to see if the pots and pans are going to be flat. Never, never. I mean, there can be heated discussions, but they're lively. And there's
Right.
never been a negative thing. Not once. Because there's so many, they got past that and found they have so many other things in common that are way more important than that.
Yeah, like toothpaste cap on, cap off, from the bottom, from the top.
Yes.
There's all those other things you can get debates over.
Yes. I love being around them, because there's just so much great energy when I'm with them, for so many reasons, including this like stated truths from the beginning, that we can talk about our points and get as riled up as we want and passionate. I mean, it's cool because they're such passionate people. And then they're like, okay, let's moving on to another subject where there's no bad feelings. It's really refreshing. I like it a lot. Okay.
Okay, next one. Yes, another one of these weird terms.
That's so weird.
This one's called zombieing.
Oof.
In zombies, yeah. And it's funny because there have been movies about zombies in the last few years. It must be a theme that's going on. And I mean, the simplest way of putting it is this is like taking ghosting to another level. Because ghosting has been around for quite a while. And most people know what ghosting is when somebody basically vanishes, disappears. If you know what zombies are, it's like the dead walking, the Walking Dead, rather, as they say in the TV show. That's the idea, is that a zombie is somebody basically ghosts you, then comes back in the picture again.
I know.
So it's like they disappear and they show up like nothing happened. And the thing about it is, you're sitting there going, "What happened?" Because they vanished for like 2 months, 3 months. Then they suddenly show up again, and nothing happened. And your partner goes, "Did you know you vanished? Did you know you didn't know?" So the thing about that is, if they're treating you that way, you might want to get the hell out fast. Because if they don't take care of you and respect you and let you know, "I'm sorry, I got called away because of family emergency," or something like that, they just don't think about it. You may not be high on their priority list. So you might want to bail soon.
This one brought to mind that wonderful saying of, fool me once, shame on you, and fool me twice, shame on me. I'm like,
Yeah.
Once.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe once. Tell me the reason. Okay. maybe. Yeah, not sure I like the reason. Not sure I like somebody that couldn't at least check in.
Hmm.
And then maybe we'll ease back into it. I've done it. I will be honest about it.
Yep.
Second time, I don't care what it is. And even if I'm going to say out loud, even if it's something that's really honest and a big deal, and their life is just, and I'm like, but do I want that in my life? Do I want somebody who has chaos and has huge things keep happening that take their 100%? No, I gave up rescuing a really long time ago. I turned in that card. And so it could be, and I'll go, wow, that's really hard. And wow, I'm so sorry. And good luck with that. And if you need some references or something, I'd be happy to do it, but I am not your gal.
Hmm.
I tell people I like my life to be between 3s and 7s. I don't need big highs. I really don't want too many big lows. So keep me in a 3 and 7. If your life lives with 8, 9, 10s, God love you. I'm not your gal. I'm not. And
Hmm.
I don't think that makes me a bad person, and it doesn't make them a bad, but it makes us definitely not a match.
That's the thing.
So
Compatibility is key in this conversation. So yeah, same as in all the other parts we talk about. It's so vital, and I love the idea of putting it into a reference point of numbers, so you get a sense of like you want it like fairly good range, but not right to the extremes.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I think I'm more like an 8 to 2 range. I'm slightly bigger than yours in that sense, but
I
there
would
are
have
extremes.
guessed that. I would have definitely guessed that. Your tolerance is a little wider than mine.
Yeah, but there's still
And
also people who go beyond my comfort level. And I'm like, no.
good to know that, right? Good to know.
Yeah.
Because if chaos is always happening, at least do it consciously. Well, I've met people who like chaos. They like things in a big jumble and they never know what they're doing. Well, I'm glad it's working for you. It just wouldn't for me. I
Yeah.
back up. I mean, I'm the beep, beep, beep truck when that happens. I don't even want to live with it. I don't want to be close friends with it. I can have you over there. And I love giving references. I love giving people support. I cannot have you intimate in my life. It's hard on me because I feel people's feelings. I know this about me. I have my limitations. So I take it on me. I just can't. I can't be around it. I'm so sorry.
Hmm.
I wish you great luck. I'm sure there'll be other people that'll want to come rushing in. It's not me.
Yeah. In fact, I want to throw something on this one to the song being thing, because there's something about it which I was having a conversation with a friend of mine this morning. She's writing a book on this, and she's very profound teaching about this stuff on boundaries, because
Yeah.
boundaries is a big piece. And this is one of the places where it shows up, or I should say, where it needs to show up,
Yeah.
because for a lot of people, because the thing, the success of somebody who's of a zombie in this context is somebody basically gets you back again after they walked away and dropped you. Yeah, yeah, winding them in, exactly. That's the thing, is that when you have good boundaries, once the door's closed, you've locked it down. It ain't coming back in again. So if they try to come back into your life, it's like, who is this? I'm not interested. But the challenge is, for some of us, I'm including myself because I've had this occasionally happen too, when somebody who I liked, but we didn't end, and so they leave, disappear, vanish, ghost me, then they come back in again. There's part of me that's still invested. So
Mhm.
it's challenging to like keep that line firm. So the thing about boundaries is that when you know that it's not good for you, like you were saying, it's so vital to honor that for yourself and be willing to say no, even when part of you wants to say yes.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. That's when I have to have a conversation with my teenagers, but they're really nice. And, we could really help them. And you really
Mhm.
like them. I know. And remember what it's like on the other side of that. Oh, yeah, no, we're not doing that. Because I
Right.
did it. I did do it enough to know it just doesn't work for me. I can't even though I think, oh, I could be a really, help. I can't, I fall apart. I get drained. I get exhausted. I get resentful. It doesn't bring out my best self. So you don't
No.
want me. You think you want me, but you don't want me because I don't look like this when I'm feeling all crabby about it.
Right.
So yeah, I think boundaries are so important about what's your limit? Where are your limitations about how somebody treats you, how they're treating themselves, how their life is as a whole.
Hmm.
Because yeah, I mean, you pick and choose, this is okay enough, as long as it's okay enough, and this is great, but this is really bad. This is bad for me. Then I'm sorry if there's all this really wonderful stuff. If it's really bad for you, I can't stay anymore. I can't. I had to learn that really important lesson. It was hard. It's
Many of us
really
have
hard when you really like them, or, I'm going to
to.
say it like the sex is really good. You're like, oh, but I want to do that again. Yeah, no.
Yeah. Yeah, that one's familiar.
Because most people have been there.
Yeah.
There's a part of me going, it really couldn't we one more time? No, because I tried that too. It doesn't work.
Just one.
Yeah, just once, like an alcoholic. Yeah, I'll just have one. No. Yeah, we're not doing that ever again. Never, never, never.
No. Next one.
So woke fishing, I thought that this was such a cool term because it's like, how woke are you? I mean, really?
Mhm.
And that someone assumes a false identity of being this, I'm all of this, and I do all of this, and I say all of this, and I know all these people, and I've done all this in my life. And I am the kind of person that I've learned I give everybody the benefit of the doubt.
Mhm.
In the beginning, I listen really carefully to go, and then I ask questions, and then I watch what happens, and then I see what other people say, and I find out. I really have never had a bad experience because I've always found out. So one of my best examples is when I would ask people about, why did you get divorced? And they always tell me what the other person did. And I go, well, what was your responsibility? And some would take none, and some would fudge, and I'd find out later. When I met my late husband, it came up pretty quickly, third date probably, when he explained to me he'd been married twice before. And I go, so really, twice? I've never gone out with somebody been divorced twice. What happened? And he 100% took responsibility. He didn't say one bad thing about them, which was really very impressive. And then I learned that it was true, all the things that he had said about him. And then I learned, of course, it was their responsibility too. It takes two people to make or break a relationship. I was like, I have never met somebody who did that way. I was so impressed. So there's the opposite of the woke fishing, because that's when I'm going to say again what I'd said in the beginning was always tell the truth.
Yes.
I don't want you to tell the whole truth. I don't want you to tell everything about everything right away. I don't want to hear it. I learned the hard way to not do it because I did. Like, you want to know everything about me at the first hour? No. I use moderation now, but everything I tell you is a fact, 100% fact. So I never have to remember that I lied. It doesn't matter who you talk to about me. They're going to have the same story. So this way, if you are telling the truth, I have found it's helped me even more suss out when somebody isn't.
Oh, yeah.
Because I'm not worrying about my not telling the truth. So I'm like, really? So, and then there's times when people misspeak. So that's okay too. I thought you said, I heard you say, was I mistaken? Could you explain a little more about that? And then I listen and see what they say. Because this isn't going to get past me ever again. But I was such a sucker in the beginning.
I totally understand. And I appreciate that.
It might have happened to you once or twice before too, Mr. Perry.
I'm not going to say that loud, but maybe.
That's why we're such good teachers, because we've had all this stuff happen to us.
We've learned the lessons more than once. Yeah. So we'll speak to a couple of things, and I love the way you said that and framed it. And it is that key about being honest and being authentic from the beginning, because that really is the best gift and the best way of being. Because it's also, as I said before, it's a lot easier to remember what you've said when it's the truth when you try and make up lies. So there's one piece. Second piece, though, and this came up a lot. In a way, it relates back to the pandemic piece, because I've been in a spiritual community, the one I'm in now, for the last 20, almost 30 years now. And I've also been in a lot of the personal growth work alongside that, which, and one of the couple of terms I learned along the way, I say them now, then explain them, because I don't want people, well, actually, you know what? Let me explain first, then I'll give the titles, because if I say the titles, people will start wondering what they mean. And there's like, let me explain what they mean first. That make it work better. So over the years, and particularly the pandemic was one of the big examples of this, is that I had a lot of people I knew who came to the same spiritual community who always wondered if they really were in the community. They were doing the work, they were really opening up, they were transforming, they were growing. I found my answer when the pandemic happened, because I watched people's reactions. And I mean reactions, not responses, reactions, which is a very different thing. We talked about that before, or I've talked about it before in my own talks, that when people become reactive to things, as in they become the victim of it versus being able to respond from a place of ownership and authority, it shows a lack of awareness. It shows a lack of spiritual growth. It shows a lack of presence. And so these people who I thought of, because they'd been noticed in the community as being like out in front, people said, oh, they're famous, they're good, whatever it is, suddenly showed their true colors. And what was happening was they would buy into the fear mongering, whatever it was, like we talked about earlier with the Fauciing. And so what I saw was the facade fell away. Their holier than thou persona wasn't holier than thou. It was holy, as in full of holes. Let's use that term. And so the terms that I learned, one was from my master's program. It talks about it called spiritual bypass, where you just go, everything's fine, everything's perfect. Meanwhile, you weren't doing what was actually hurting or wounding inside. One of my other favorite people, Lisa Nichols, uses the term spiritual saran wrap, where basically you wrap yourself up in the spirituality without doing the inner work, so that the inner work doesn't get done, and you end up seeing it's almost like you're rotting from the inside out. Because you basically, it's like if you saran wrap an apple and put it in the fridge, or even on the counter, eventually it'll just fall apart from the inside out because it's not doing the work. I know it's a gross image, but the idea being is that if you don't face your own inner demon stuff, issues, whatever those things are, and you pretend everything's okay, like Pollyanna almost, then there's a lack of authenticity, and it's not fully ownership. So the challenge is when you meet somebody who is pretending to be all they are when they're not, you're going to get disappointed at some point, and it's going to hurt. So I'm grateful now that my radar is pretty strong. I've got a pretty good radar on this stuff, but looking back now and going, yeah, I sort of knew back then it was like that, but then they showed me their true colors. It was disheartening, disconcerting, because I thought these people were in my tribe, so to speak, but in fact they were on the outskirts. They always were.
I know.
No,
it's very disappointing. It really can break your heart depending on how close you were and how trusting you were of them. Yeah. I think one of the things that people will say is that they can't trust their instincts, and often we're just not listening to them. They're tapping us on the shoulder, like, I want to believe this, and they say that, and it's we shoot ourselves in the foot. One of the terms that's out there, that we have so many tools that if we would learn to hone them, if we would learn to really listen to them, if we'd learn to trust them, we'd stop doubting ourselves, and we'd stop getting ourselves in all these fixes. And what you and I have learned to do, and now we teach, is for people to hone that skill that's in them. They know it. I tell people, I know you have the answers. You just haven't been asked the right questions or guided to look this way inside of you and go, oh, I really do know that. I didn't know that. I wasn't using that. I didn't realize that this hurt was getting in the way. And how do I need to heal this hurt? And what would be my next step to bring myself closer to the person that I want to be, so that I will attract somebody that wants that kind of person, and that I would want who they are. Because if you're not telling the truth out there, you're probably not telling the truth in here, huh?
Exactly.
Those saran wrap people are not telling themselves the truth.
Exactly. I love that term so much. So I guess
I've never heard that before. I like it. Yeah,
that is Lisa Nichols. She's one of my favorite people, and she talks about that. So I definitely give her props for that term. And I guess we're running out of time to do our rest of our terms. We'll have to come back and do some more of these at some point.
Well, there's 10, so we did 5. We can do 5 more when we have another show. How fun is that? We hope we always leave you wanting more.
Indeed. Well said.
Thank you. So if you're feeling like, I want to get to my truth, I want to have other people start telling me the truth, I want to find that really deep relationship with myself, so that I can have a really deep relationship with another person. Because, boy, Barry and I have really learned that that's what it takes, is for us to do the inner work. Because as soon as we do that, the wrong people stop showing up and the right people start showing up, and you can have this really wonderful connecting that you didn't even know you could have once you've gotten to this knowing inside of yourself.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
the way that you could do that with me is to go to my website, which is www.theperfectcatch.com, and click on What's Holding You Back from Love. It will give you a chance to have a complimentary conversation with me. You can also sign up for my newsletter, and then you'll get a newsletter from me every week with a replay of this wonderful podcast. You can also reach me on my many social media places. So on Facebook and LinkedIn and Pinterest and Twitter, it's Christine Baumgartner or The Perfect Catch. And then for YouTube, if you want to watch the replays of this, it's at Coach Christine Baumgartner. And at Instagram, it's Coach Christine Baumgartner. Thank you.
Whoa.
I know. Well, the problem is Kevin Costner married somebody with my name, which wasn't as much of a problem till now they're getting divorced. And now she's asking for a lot of money in their for their child support. And so she's back way higher than me. But if you put in coach, you'll get me and not her, because she's not a dating coach at all.
Or just search for The Perfect Catch. That will get to you as well.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah. So the way you can reach me is a little bit easier because I'm not with my name. No, say that way. Basically, if you want to reach me, go to my website, which is barryselby.com. So my name is my site, as is most of my social media. I'll tell you that in a second. On my site, on the homepage, you can definitely sign up for a mini session with me on the first top of the page. We can say take the next step. At the bottom of the homepage, there's a link to join my email list where you can get all the information going on upcoming events I'm doing, plus 3 plays of the show. My site is still being redesigned. It's been taking a while, but it's getting there, and it's going to come up soon, I hope. You'll see a lot more stuff available, but in the meantime, that's the best place to start. On social media, you can find me under my name, which is Barry Selby, as I mentioned, on Facebook, on LinkedIn, on Twitter, on Clubhouse, Pinterest, YouTube especially, because there are lots of videos on YouTube. Besides this show, I've got 1,000 other videos, so you definitely follow me there, and please subscribe. And Instagram's the old one out, which is the real Barry Selby, but definitely I post stuff there as well. And just let you know ahead of time, I got some new things brewing. So definitely follow me on social media, because I post a lot of things there about what I'm up to and what I'm doing. So if you want to keep up to date and follow me around, that's the way to do it.
They should always follow us around, don't you think, Barry?
Yeah, in a good way.
In a very good way. So then also we're here every week at 1 o'clock Pacific and 4 o'clock Eastern and all the times in between. So you can watch us live, and we love your comments if you are watching us live. And if you're watching this on a replay, please comment. Tell us if this was helpful, if you have additional questions or concerns, or if you have subjects that you want us to make sure that we cover in the future, that would be great. You can also watch us on all the streaming channels. We're on Roku if you want to watch us and listen to us. And then we're also on Apple Podcasts. It's very exciting. And you can take us to the gym or when you're running or walking. We're very portable.
Yes, so definitely listen to us and take us with you. And we do invite your comments, questions, thoughts as well. And again, our show is live every Thursday. Yeah. So follow us, check us out, and we hope to see you next time.
And share it with your friends that are having challenges with their dating and relationships too.